The apartment was eerily quiet, except for the sharp, raw scream that broke the silence. Sarah stood frozen in the doorway, clutching her son Liam to her chest. Her eyes were wide with fear, heart pounding as her ex-husband, Mark, stormed out. His face was a blur of anger and betrayal, his fist slamming the door with a deafening crash. In the distance, the faint sound of sirens grew louder, creeping closer with each passing second. A chilling tension hung in the air, as if the world had suddenly shifted, and Sarah could feel the weight of everything crashing down on her. She held Liam tighter, his small body trembling in her arms. Her thoughts were racing. What had just happened? Was this the end of her family, or just the beginning of a new fight? As the sirens grew closer, Sarah's resolve hardened. She was willing to do anything to protect Liam. Anything. After Mark's departure, Sarah was left standing in the doorway, her thoughts clouded by confusion and disbelief. Liam, still clinging to her, whispered in her ear, his voice trembling, "Why did Daddy leave, Mommy?" Her heart broke. She pulled him tighter, unsure how to answer. The question was a sharp reminder of how much their lives had changed. Sarah's mind raced through the years, the promises made, the happiness they once shared. She never imagined a day like this would come. The weight of her responsibilities grew heavier with each passing moment. She had no choice but to protect Liam. As she sat down on the couch, she tried to think of how she could fix this, but every possible answer seemed like a distant dream. Her own fear and uncertainty mirrored Liam's, and all she could do was hold him, hoping that the love they had would be enough to shield them from the storm ahead. The morning after Mark's departure felt like a cruel reminder that everything had shifted. Sarah woke up to the silence of their home, no longer filled with the warmth of shared moments. Liam, still in his pajamas, curled up beside her in bed, his face full of questions that she couldn't yet answer. She kissed his forehead, trying to hide her own fear. "We'll be okay, Liam," she whispered, but deep down she wasn't so sure. She had to make decisions now, not just for herself but for Liam too. The weight of the custody battle loomed over her like a dark cloud. Her heart ached, wondering how she could protect him from the emotional toll of this fight. But she wasn't about to give up. She would fight no matter what, to keep her family together, even if it meant facing the pain of her own past. She needed to stay strong, for him, even when every part of her wanted to fall apart. Sarah spent the entire morning sitting at the kitchen table, staring at the legal papers in front of her. The words blurred together as she tried to make sense of it all. A battle for custody, something she never wanted to face, yet here she was, trapped in a nightmare. The thought of her ex-husband taking Liam from her sent waves of panic through her chest. She couldn't let that happen. But the more she read, the more she realized just how little she knew about navigating a legal fight like this. She couldn't afford a lawyer. Every decision felt like a gamble. Her only ally was her determination, but even that wasn't enough to ease the fear gnawing at her. She had to protect Liam at all costs, no matter how exhausting or difficult it would be. She took a deep breath, steeling herself for what was ahead, knowing that if she didn't fight for Liam, no one else would. Sarah spent hours on the phone, trying to find a solution, but each call left her feeling more defeated. She couldn't afford to hire a lawyer, and every free service she tried had long waiting lists. The clock was ticking, and Mark's threats loomed large. Liam was still asleep in his room, unaware of the storm raging outside their small world. Sarah's frustration boiled over, but she kept it together, knowing she couldn't let Liam see her weakness. She couldn't let him see the fear that was threatening to consume her. In the silence of the house, the pressure of the situation made everything feel more urgent. She had to act now. She couldn't wait any longer. The fight ahead was going to be long, but she was ready to face it, no matter what the cost. It was a rainy afternoon when Sarah received the call that would shatter the little peace she had found. The voice on the other end, calm yet firm, told her that her best friend Mia had been hiding something crucial from her. The truth? Mia had been secretly helping Mark with his legal case against Sarah. "I thought you were my friend," Sarah whispered, her voice breaking. Mia's silence on the other end of the line said everything Sarah needed to hear. Her betrayal hurt more than Mark's departure. In that moment, Sarah felt as though the ground beneath her had given way. The people she trusted, the people she thought were there for her, were turning against her. As the rain continued to fall, Sarah hung up the phone, her hands shaking. She felt utterly alone, unsure of where to turn next. How could she trust anyone when even the closest people in her life had let her down? Sarah was done with the secrecy. She needed to confront Mia. But the thought of seeing her again, after everything, made her stomach churn. After a few days of hesitation, she met Mia at a small cafe, the silence between them thick and uncomfortable. Mia looked different. Her eyes, once filled with warmth and trust, now appeared guarded. "Why didn't you tell me?" Sarah asked, her voice strained. Mia hesitated before speaking, her words cold and rational, as though Sarah's pain was a minor detail compared to her own. "I did what I had to do. Mark promised me things would get better for all of us," Mia replied. Sarah felt the weight of those words, betrayal wrapped in justifications. "I thought we were family," Sarah said softly, staring down at the coffee cup between them. The betrayal didn't just cut deep, it broke the bond that had once been unshakable. Back at her apartment, Sarah's mind raced as she replayed the conversation with Mia over and over again. It wasn't just about betrayal, it was about the loss of someone who had been a constant in her life. Mia's involvement with Mark was a game changer, and now Sarah had no one to turn to for support. She tried to focus on the task at hand, protecting Liam. She knew the court battle would be grueling, but now it was personal. Mia's betrayal cut deeper than the looming custody fight. Sarah felt as though she was trapped in a battle on all fronts. Yet she couldn't let it show. She had to be strong for Liam. He was the one thing in her life that still made sense. As the days passed, the weight of the betrayal continued to haunt her, but Sarah knew one thing for certain: she would never give up. Not now. Not ever. The next morning, Sarah received a letter from Mark's lawyer. Her hands trembled as she opened it. Inside was a detailed accusation about her fitness as a mother, suggesting that her financial instability and emotional distress made her unfit to raise Liam. The words blurred before her eyes as panic set in. Mark was using everything against her, her fears, her doubts, and even her past mistakes. But the letter wasn't just a legal document. It was a threat. It was a reminder that the war for Liam's custody was far from over. Sarah's breath hitched as she pictured Mark smiling, knowing he was one step closer to winning. She couldn't let that happen. The letter might have been a blow, but it was also the fuel she needed to fight back. "I won't let him take you, Liam," she whispered, clutching the letter in her hands. She was ready to take on the world, if it meant protecting her son. Sarah knew she had to respond, but the weight of the accusations in Mark's letter paralyzed her. She spent the entire day researching custody laws, trying to find a way to fight back. Each new piece of information only made her feel more overwhelmed. Her phone rang again, but this time, it was her lawyer. "We can work with this," he said, his voice reassuring. "But we need evidence. We need witnesses, Sarah." She nodded, even though she had no idea where to find them. The odds seemed insurmountable, but she was done being passive. She would do whatever it took to prove she was a good mother. As she hung up, Sarah realized that the battle ahead wasn't just about winning custody, it was about reclaiming her life. She wasn't just fighting for Liam, she was fighting for herself too. The courthouse loomed ahead as Sarah approached, her heart racing in her chest. She had never felt so small, yet so determined. The air felt heavy with the weight of her decision. Today, she was finally going to face Mark in court. She had been preparing for this moment for weeks, but now that it was here, the reality of what she was about to do hit her. The chance to lose Liam, the thought of him growing up without her, was too much to bear. As she stood in front of the courthouse, she briefly closed her eyes and took a deep breath, telling herself that this was for him, for Liam. She would fight with everything she had. The fear, the self-doubt, everything would have to wait. Today, she was a mother fighting for her child's future. And she wouldn't stop, not now, not ever. Inside the courtroom, Sarah sat quietly, waiting for her turn. The lawyer had told her to remain calm, to hold steady, but her nerves were frayed. Mark sat across from her, flanked by his lawyer, a smug look on his face that made Sarah's blood boil. She had never felt more exposed. The judge, an older woman with a stern expression, called the case to order, and the room fell into complete silence. Sarah glanced over at Liam, who sat next to her, looking confused and anxious. She squeezed his hand, giving him a small smile. This was it. The battle for his future was beginning, and everything she had worked for, everything she believed in, was on the line. As the judge asked for the opening statements, Sarah took a deep breath and prepared to speak. She had one chance to get this right. As Sarah took the stand, she felt the weight of every eye on her. The lawyer for Mark stood up, ready to tear apart everything she had built. His first question was a sharp one. Do you think your emotional instability will impact your ability to raise your child? Sarah's heart skipped a beat. The words felt like a punch to the gut. She had spent years building a life for Liam, a stable, loving home. But here was a lawyer questioning her every move. I am a good mother, she said, her voice steady despite the fear flooding her chest. I've always done what was best for my son. The courtroom fell silent, the tension thick in the air. She wasn't going to let him twist her words. This was her fight, and she was ready. After the session ended, Sarah stepped out of the courtroom, her body numb from the emotional toll. The lawyer had hammered her on her past mistakes, her emotional outbursts, trying to paint her as unstable. She knew it was coming, but it still hurt. Outside, the sun had set, casting the streets in a deep purple hue. She could feel the weight of the day pressing on her shoulders. Liam's hand in hers was the only comfort she had. Are we going home now? Liam asked quietly, his innocent voice breaking through her thoughts. Sarah looked down at him and nodded, her smile forced. Yes, sweetie, she said. We're going home. But inside, she was a whirlwind of emotions, unsure of what the future held, yet resolute in her determination to fight. The following days passed in a blur of meetings, phone calls, and more paperwork. Sarah's exhaustion was starting to show, but she couldn't afford to stop. Each day felt like a new battle, but she was learning to keep her composure. During one particularly late night, as Sarah reviewed some final legal documents, she noticed a pattern in Mark's accusations. The lawyer had presented nothing but lies. It was all there in black and white. They were using her vulnerabilities against her, but it wasn't enough. She had evidence of her own, testimonies, witnesses, and most importantly, her unwavering love for Liam. She wasn't giving up. She couldn't. As she signed the last document, she felt a rush of resolve. She wasn't just fighting for her son's future. She was fighting for her own. The weight of the courtroom battle had been wearing on Sarah, but just when she thought she couldn't take any more, a surprise appeared. An unexpected phone call interrupted her evening. Her estranged brother Daniel was calling. She hadn't spoken to him in years. The bitterness between them was deep, but the voice on the other end sounded different. He explained that he had been following the case from afar and had a shocking piece of information to share. I know how to help, he said, but his voice held a sense of urgency that made Sarah's heart race. Daniel had been keeping tabs on their father's will, and there was something in it that could shift the entire case in her favor. At that moment, Sarah's mind raced. Was this a blessing or a curse? Trusting Daniel after all these years of estrangement felt impossible. But the situation was dire, and she had no choice but to consider the offer. The truth was, she needed help, and maybe this was the sign she'd been waiting for. The next day, Sarah met with Daniel in a quiet cafe, the air thick with unspoken tension. He was different, older, his features roughened by years of estrangement. He hadn't changed much, but Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that this conversation could change everything. I never wanted to hurt you, Daniel said, his voice low. But the truth is, I've been watching, waiting for the right moment. Mark doesn't deserve custody. His words hit Sarah like a bombshell. The shock of his sudden allegiance to her cause was overwhelming. You want to help me? She asked, skeptical but desperate. Daniel nodded, sliding a file across the table. There's something in here that could turn the case around. But if you accept my help, there's no going back. Sarah felt a knot form in her stomach. The stakes had just been raised higher than she ever imagined. Was she willing to trust her brother after everything? That night, Sarah lay in bed, unable to sleep. The decision to trust Daniel weighed heavily on her mind. The fact that he had offered help was a miracle, but could she truly rely on him? Memories of their childhood flashed before her, arguments, silence, and unresolved pain. Yet, Daniel had always been protective of her, even in his own way. But how could she be sure that he wasn't manipulating the situation for his own gain? As Sarah stared at the ceiling, her mind wandered. Her ex-husband, Mark, had never played fair. His lies and manipulations had worn her down to the brink. Could Daniel be the ally she needed to expose the truth and win Liam's custody? The doubt lingered, but Sarah knew one thing for sure. She had no other choice but to trust someone, even if it was her estranged brother. For Liam, she had to take the risk. The following morning, Sarah and Daniel sat in her apartment, going through the contents of the file. It contained documents, emails, and recorded conversations that painted Mark in a much darker light than Sarah had known. He's been hiding assets, using the money for his own benefit, Daniel explained. This is proof he's unfit. Sarah's hands shook as she leafed through the pages. Her eyes locked on one document that confirmed her worst fears. Mark had been manipulating the system to make himself appear more stable while keeping her financially strapped. Sarah's heart raced as she realized just how far Mark had gone to make her look like the unfit parent. "We can use this," Sarah said, her voice steady but full of determination. The fight had just taken a dramatic turn, and she wasn't going to back down now. She was ready to expose Mark's lies, even if it meant risking everything. Sarah knew that her next step would change everything. The evidence in the file was enough to challenge Mark's entire case. But the fear of retaliation from him kept gnawing at her. She had always known that fighting for Liam would be a battle, but now it felt more like a war. After taking some time to process, Sarah made the call to her lawyer. "I'm ready to go all in," she said, her voice unwavering. "We have the evidence. Let's end this." Her lawyer was shocked, but encouraged her to move forward. "This is your chance," he told her. "We can take Mark down." As Sarah hung up, the weight of her decision settled over her. She had taken a massive risk, but it was the only way to win. Now, with the truth in her hands, she was ready to fight for her son with everything she had. The courtroom was eerily silent as Sarah took the stand again, her heart pounding in her chest. This was the moment that would decide everything. Mark's lawyer had presented his arguments, and now it was her turn. As she stood up, her knees felt weak, but she straightened her back, determined to remain strong. Her hands trembled, but she clenched them into fists at her sides. "I am not perfect," she began, her voice steady but filled with emotion. "I have made mistakes, but I am a mother, and I will fight for my child." The words felt like they came from deep within her, echoing with all the love, fear, and determination that had brought her here. She had fought for years to create a safe and loving home for Liam. "I love my son," she continued, her eyes fixed on the judge. "And I will do whatever it takes to protect him." Her statement hung in the air as the room fell into a tense silence, all eyes on her. This was her final chance to show the court who she truly was. After Sarah finished her testimony, Mark's lawyer stood up, ready to cross-examine. The questions started slow but quickly became sharp and pointed, aimed directly at Sarah's weaknesses. "You've struggled with emotional stability in the past, correct?" he asked. Sarah felt a pang of guilt, but she fought to maintain her composure. She nodded, but before she could respond, the lawyer pressed on. "And you've had financial difficulties, haven't you?" Sarah's heart skipped a beat. These were the things Mark had used to paint her as unfit. The room grew colder as the lawyer's questions grew more aggressive, each one designed to tear her down. But Sarah wasn't backing down. With each question, she felt her resolve grow stronger. "Yes, I've faced challenges," she replied. "But that doesn't make me unfit to raise my son. I'm a good mother." The words came from her soul, and she could feel the truth in them. She wasn't perfect, but she was doing her best, and that was enough. As the cross-examination continued, Sarah could feel the pressure mounting. Each word felt like a personal attack, and every question seemed designed to undermine her confidence. But in that moment, something inside her shifted. She remembered why she was here, why this fight mattered. Liam's face flashed in her mind, his bright eyes, his smile. She thought of the nights she stayed up late working, of the sacrifices she made to ensure he had everything he needed. "I've made mistakes," Sarah said, her voice steady, "but every decision I've made has been for him." The room went silent. She could feel the weight of her words. She had nothing left to prove to anyone except herself. The lawyer's next question came, but Sarah wasn't listening anymore. She was no longer just fighting for a win, she was fighting for her right to be Liam's mother. And that was a fight she was going to win. After a grueling few hours, the judge called for a recess. Sarah stepped outside the courtroom, feeling drained but oddly empowered. She leaned against the wall, taking deep breaths as the weight of the day began to settle. She had fought hard, but it wasn't over yet. Her lawyer joined her outside, giving her a quick nod of encouragement. "You did great," he said, but Sarah could see the concern in his eyes. This was far from decided, and there was still so much that could go wrong. "Do you think we have a chance?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. "You've got the truth on your side," he replied, his tone calm but reassuring. "That's all we need." Sarah nodded, but the doubt still lingered. The reality of losing Liam was too much to bear. Yet she knew that this was her moment, the chance to make everything right. And no matter the outcome, she was going to keep fighting. The final ruling came after what felt like an eternity. Sarah sat in the courtroom, holding her breath as the judge made her decision. The words she had been waiting for echoed through the room. "I award full custody of Liam to his mother, Sarah." The relief that washed over Sarah was indescribable. She felt as though the weight of the world had been lifted off her shoulders. The tears came, unexpected but welcome, as she looked over at Liam, who was sitting next to her, his eyes wide with confusion. He didn't understand what had just happened, but Sarah did. She had won. She had kept her promise. She had fought for him. As the courtroom emptied, Sarah held Liam close, whispering over and over, "We're going to be okay. We're going to be okay." The journey was far from over, but this was their victory. It had been a week since the ruling. The days blurred together in a haze of relief and exhaustion. Sarah woke up to the same routine, but now there was something different in the air, a quiet peace. Liam, now settled back into their home, was playing in the living room, laughing as he built a tower of blocks. Sarah watched him from the doorway, a soft smile on her face. The apartment, once filled with tension, now seemed full of light. The sound of Liam's giggles echoed through the room, grounding Sarah in the reality of their new life. Despite the scars left by the custody battle, there was a sense of calm. They had won, but the journey to heal had just begun. As Sarah took a seat on the couch, she realized that the fight for Liam's future had not just transformed her, it had brought her back to life in a way she hadn't expected. She was stronger, more resilient, and more ready to face whatever came next. Despite the peace in their home, Sarah knew that things would never truly return to how they were. The scars of the battle, the emotional toll, were still fresh. She found herself more contemplative these days, staring out of the window at the world outside, thinking about the future. She'd spent so many years fighting to keep Liam safe, to protect him from the chaos of her past. But now, with the court case behind them, she faced the daunting task of rebuilding trust in herself, and trust in the people around her. For so long, Sarah had carried the weight alone, but now she had to learn to lean on others again. Her best friend Mia had reached out, apologizing for the past, but Sarah wasn't sure she was ready to forgive just yet. The road ahead was uncertain, but one thing was clear. Sarah had to rebuild her life for Liam and for herself. The sound of a knock at the door startled Sarah as she was preparing dinner. She wasn't expecting anyone. As she opened the door, she was surprised to find Mia standing there, holding a bouquet of flowers in her hands. "Can we talk?" Mia asked, her voice tentative. Sarah hesitated, unsure if she was ready to face her friend after everything that had happened. But something in Mia's eyes made Sarah soften. They stepped into the living room, and for a moment, neither spoke. The weight of their shared history hung between them. "I'm sorry," Mia finally said, her voice cracking with emotion. "I betrayed you, and I don't know if I can ever make it right." Sarah listened, feeling a mixture of anger and longing. "I don't know if I can forgive you, Mia," she replied, her voice calm but firm. "But I am willing to try, for Liam." Mia nodded, understanding the gravity of Sarah's words. The road to forgiveness was long, but it was a start. As the weeks passed, Sarah began to heal, but it wasn't a linear journey. Some days were better than others. There were still moments when the weight of the past crept in, when the fear of losing Liam again gripped her chest. But slowly, she found peace in the small, everyday moments. Watching Liam grow, seeing him smile, hearing him laugh, it was all she needed. And though she hadn't yet fully repaired her relationship with Mia, she was beginning to understand the value of second chances. Trust was a fragile thing, but Sarah had learned that sometimes it had to be rebuilt slowly, one step at a time. As she walked through the park one afternoon, Liam running ahead to the swings, Sarah realized that she had been given a rare gift, a fresh start. And this time, she wasn't going to take it for granted. One evening, after putting Liam to bed, Sarah sat by the window again, watching the stars. The apartment was quiet, peaceful. She thought about everything that had happened, the years of struggle, the battles in court, the moments of doubt. And yet, here they were, together. She had fought hard for this life, and though it hadn't been easy, she wouldn't trade it for anything. Sarah knew that life would continue to throw challenges their way, but she was no longer afraid. With Liam by her side, she could face anything. As she gazed out at the night sky, Sarah whispered softly, "We're stronger now, and we'll never stop fighting." She didn't need to say it aloud, but it was a promise to herself, to Liam, and to the life they were building together. The journey had been long, but the future was theirs to shape. The weight of the past months finally began to lift, but the scars remained. Sarah stood by the window, staring out at the morning sky as the sun rose over the city. It had been a long journey to get here, and the quiet that now filled their home felt almost surreal. The laughter of Liam, now playing in the next room, was a sound Sarah never took for granted. It wasn't just that they had won the custody battle. It was the realization that they had overcome something far bigger. The battle she'd fought had taught her not just about survival, but about resilience. She had learned to trust herself again, to believe in the strength that lay within her. She could feel the possibility of a new future stretching ahead of them, one where she and Liam could finally breathe without the constant fear of losing everything. It wasn't a perfect world, but it was theirs, and they were ready to face it together. Liam had been more quiet than usual, and Sarah noticed it immediately. He seemed distracted, his thoughts far away even when he was in the room with her. She knew that the impact of the custody battle was still with him, even if he hadn't fully processed it. "Are you okay, sweetie?" she asked, kneeling beside him as he played with his toys. Liam nodded but didn't look up. Sarah sat down next to him, gently taking his hand in hers. "It's okay to be scared," she said softly. "It's okay to feel sad sometimes." Liam finally met her gaze, his eyes wide with vulnerability. "I just want everything to be okay, Mommy," he whispered. The words broke Sarah's heart. She kissed his forehead and promised him, "We're okay now, sweetheart. We're together, and that's what matters." She could see the relief in his eyes as he smiled, his innocence returning. It was a moment of healing, and Sarah knew this was just the beginning of a new chapter for both of them. Sarah had spent so much of her life fighting for her child, fighting for stability, fighting for survival. But now, with the court case behind her and a new sense of calm settling in, she realized something. It was okay to stop fighting for a moment. It was okay to let herself be vulnerable, to let herself enjoy the peace they had worked so hard to find. She took a walk to the nearby park, the crisp autumn air filling her lungs. As she walked along the path, she felt a sense of gratitude. Gratitude for the support of her lawyer, for the small victories along the way, and for the chance to start anew. She knew there would still be challenges ahead, but for the first time in years, she didn't feel overwhelmed. She could finally breathe, and it felt good. Sarah paused for a moment, looking up at the sky, and allowed herself a rare, quiet moment of joy. Back at home, Sarah and Liam spent the evening together, their new routine slowly taking shape. They had dinner together, something they hadn't done in a long time, and Sarah watched as Liam's face lit up with each bite. As they cleaned up, Liam asked, "Mom, can we make cookies tomorrow?" Sarah smiled and nodded. "Of course, we can make cookies." It was a simple request, but it made her realize how much they had missed out on during the tumult of the custody battle. The little moments, the everyday joys, were what had been taken for granted. But now, with everything settled, Sarah felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude for the normalcy they were reclaiming. She had spent so long focusing on the fight, but now she was learning to appreciate the peace, to embrace the quiet moments that made their lives special. As Sarah sat beside Liam in his room, watching him drift off to sleep, she whispered to herself, "We're stronger now, and we'll never stop fighting." It wasn't just a promise to him, it was a promise to herself too. She had come so far from the woman she was before, and while the future remained uncertain, she knew that they would face it together. She didn't need to have all the answers. She just needed to believe in their love, in their ability to overcome whatever obstacles life might throw their way. As she leaned down to kiss Liam goodnight, she realized that her journey had not only transformed her, but had given her a deeper understanding of the power of family, love, and perseverance. They had survived the worst, and now, they could move forward into the future, hand in hand, with hope.